Very good morning and welcome all of you to the daily news analysis for 25th of April 2025 with me Jatin Verma. Today, after a lot of research on Indus Water Treaty, the previous year questions that have been asked by UPSC, we are going to study the entire Indus Water Treaty, its provisions, and also we are going to cover the editorial that has appeared in the Indian Express with regard to this thing. But first thing first, we can blame the Pakistan till eternity. Was it an intelligence failure? Number one. Was it a security failure? Because up till 12 kilometers from the site of attack, there was no soldier, no police presence. Even in cities like Delhi, even in cities like Bengaluru, which are otherwise very safe and secure, there is a beat box at least. The police presence is there. Agreed that we had abrogated Article 370 and Jammu and Kashmir recently concluded very peaceful elections, but non-presence of even the civil police till 5 to 7 kilometers from the place of attack when it is called as mini Switzerland, is it not a security failure at least? Intelligence failure is when the intelligencies, the intelligence bureau, RAW, etc., they are not able to capture any telecommunication, any kind of information with regard to the planning of the terror attack. That is intelligence failure. Security failure is that when the terror attack is happening, no one was there, no person in khaki or even in the military dress was there except the terrorists themselves to stop it, to mitigate it. Not even a single bullet was fired from the Indian side. We are going to dwell upon that. As the headline says, gloom gives way to rage as the relatives of victims raise poor security. When the minister, one of the ministers visited the Gujarat victims' family, the widowed lady says that you come with a lot of security guards, convoy of cars, but why could you not ensure the presence of at least the civil police, the civilian police over there at the site of the attack? That too when it is Jammu and Kashmir. 2019 was not 1919. It was just 5 years ago, we abrogated Article 370. So, bare minimum presence of security was also absent. So, that needs to be admitted. Introspection is necessary. Otherwise, UPSC will ask another essay, are we a soft state? That someone comes, fires the bullets, murders 26, 28 persons and then goes back safely. And then we blame on the neighbor. We know that it is Pakistan. Atal Bihari Vajpayee had once upon a time said that we cannot choose our neighbors, we have to live up with them. And he also talked about Indus Water Treaty, that water and blood cannot be allowed to flow together. And now India takes a call on Indus Water Treaty. From the UPSC's perspective, in 2023, there was a question, Vular Lake, Jhelum, etc. So we are going to discuss that also. Aside of the emotions, aside of the anger that is there, we have to do the sober analysis from the perspective of the exam. So we'll cater to that also. Now coming to these other news articles, we are going to talk about POCSO, Protection of Children from Sexual Offences Act. Age 16 to 18 years is now, it requires the consent. Earlier the age of consent was 16 years, that any girl wanting to have physical relationship with any boy or vice versa, they would not require any kind of information. The authorities need not be informed. And that is how the Oyo hotels in India, they mushroomed, because there was no information required from the hotel side, from the guest houses side to be informed to the local police. Now every such act of booking a room by a couple, by a girlfriend boyfriend kind of a couple from the age group 16 to 18 would also require the information by the hotel to the police station. So Indira Jaising is acting as Amicus curiae. We are going to talk about that matter. She says that this is leading to undue criminalization of the young couples, even though right to privacy is a fundamental right. So these topics we are going to discuss. Very good morning to all of you. DNA, we are starting a bit late these days because I pepper into it a lot of MCQs, a lot of factual insights. So that's why it takes a time, but it is well researched. Rest assured about it. Okay. So Supreme Court, this thing is there. China and Kenya pledge to upgrade ties. The other day we were talking about Tanzania, the neighboring country of Kenya. Now Kenya India and Tanzania held an exercise. China is no far behind. Even though we are embroiled in our terror attack, China is strengthening ties with Africa. More on that at the relevant news clipping. Let's get started, guys. You see this dam, Salal Dam is there, Hur Dam is there, Pong Dam is there, Bhakra Dam is there. So how the river system of Indus Water River System has been tapped by various countries. What is the vulnerability of Pakistan? So, listening to various news articles, going through Hindustan Times, etc., tells us that Pakistan's 45% population is dependent on agriculture. That too, mainly from Indus water system. 80% of the water supply of this region, agricultural part of the Pakistan, is derived from, helped from Indus water system. So that is the importance of it. Now, if India stops the supply, if India resigns or suspends the Indus Water Treaty, Pakistan will be vulnerable. But we have talked about the push and pull factors. If your neighbor like Bangladesh, Nepal, Bhutan, Maldives, Sri Lanka, they are facing some internal crisis. So what happens is it affects India badly, in the sense that these people would be meting out further danger for India. So what happened in Sri Lanka? If Sri Lanka is not properly, people are not happy here, then there will be influx of population into Tamil Nadu. If our neighbor, even though a bad neighbor, is going to face a crisis because of Indus Water Treaty suspension, then it creates further security challenges for India only. Right? So that is the point we need to take into account. Then what is going to happen with Brahmaputra here? Okay, if we stop the supply of water, then we have another friendly neighbor. In a euphemistic manner, I am saying that we have another neighbor which might stop the supply of Yarlung Stangpo, the river Brahmaputra. Okay, so we need to do the complete vulnerability analysis, because we are in times where there is no superpower like America to stop it, or any other source of good sense that can prevail upon China or Pakistan. So that's it. Now, what is yesterday's India's response was that we are going to put into abeyance the treaty signed between the two countries, and the treaty has been, you can say, a template of a country like India abiding by all the terms of treaty despite there being hostility. 4 wars, the treaty, Indus Water Treaty of 1960 has survived. Okay, no other country would live up to this kind of a international agreement in this manner as India has lived up. So let's see the more to it. In Pakistan, major dams on Indus River system. This is for our purpose, the exam thing. Preliminary preparation is required for prelims exam, CSAT paper 1 as we call it. Tarbela Dam, located on the Indus River, known for its large reservoir. So Pakistan has constructed large reservoir. Yesterday we studied that the rivers Chenab, Jhelum and Indus, they can be tapped by Pakistan. Okay, then Ravi, Beas and Satluj, they can be tapped by India. Okay, so this is how the river system has been distributed. 3 rivers to Pakistan out of 6, and 3 rivers to India. Now, Pakistan has constructed Tarbela Dam located on Indus, then Mangla Dam situated on the Jhelum River, a tributary of Indus, then Chajuma Dam located on the Indus River. So this is how these 3 dams are constructed by Pakistan. Now, talking about the India's dams, majorly we are going to talk about the dams that have been in news in the recent past, the dams which are under construction and which might wreak a havoc with the Pakistan's water supply. Number 1, Kishan Ganga Dam project. Yesterday I asked you a question. The name of the dam starts with K, and here we are, 330 megawatt Kishan Ganga Dam, and the under construction 850 megawatt Rattle Dam. These 2 projects, when completed, will stop the supply to a great extent to Pakistan. Okay, these 2 dams are expected to be prioritized now. Then Shahpur Kandi Dam, already completed. It was constructed by Punjab government to meet the irrigation needs of Punjab and Jammu and Kashmir. This dam has already been completed in 2024. Okay, and the planned Ujj Dam. More details are there for these dams aside of the hyperbole. Now, have a look here. Water allocation from 6 rivers of Indus Basin is such that India is able to tap 33 million acre feet of water, 20%. of the total Indus water system, and Pakistan is tapping 80% of the water, 135 million acre feet. This is the gesture that India has been doing despite 1971 war, despite 4 full-fledged wars, including the Kargil war of 1998-1999. Okay, so now is the time to review the treaty. It was not that India is such a sweet country. Okay, no, we have our own compulsions. As I told you, if we will do this kind of a thing to Pakistan, tomorrow China would also do this to India. Not tomorrow, even today itself. Okay, at the behest of Pakistan. So we see the increasing ties developing between China and Pakistan in the recent years. And in the light of that fact, this will be a kind of double-edged sword for India. Even though in the news channels we are seeing that this issue of Brahmaputra river is not being analyzed at all, but we have to see what will be the vulnerability of India vis-a-vis Brahmaputra river, vis-a-vis China. Okay, so that is their sharp. These dams, please note down their names. These are very important for our thing. In the exam 2023 itself, this question was there. That is why I'm saying not much was happening with regard to this river system. Okay, but still, this question was asked in 2023. Jhelum river passes through Vular Lake. Krishna river directly feeds Koleru Lake. Then meandering of Gandak river formed Kanwar Lake. Meandering of Gandak river formed Kanwar Lake. How many of the above statements given above is or are correct? Okay, so the new pattern of asking the questions is how many of the above statements, not 1, 2, 3, so as to eliminate any scope for elimination. So those tricks to crack UPSC prelims exam are gone now. So this question was already there. In the light of this question, this is a question from another one-day exam. Which river falls into Vular Lake in the north, then moves towards Baramulla? Okay, which is the name of the river here? Please answer this question. This is not a prelims question. This is a question, which was asked in one of the one-day exams. So this is there. Then your these river systems are there. Other details, as I told you, that 6 rivers are divided in a manner that Ravi, Chenab, and Ravi, Satluj, and Beas. Their water is mainly tapped by India. RBS. CJI, Chief Justice of India, is the acronym to memorize it. These Chenab, Jhelum, and Indus, the water is tapped by Pakistan. Okay, so India is constructing these dams. Apart from these dams, what are the other specific features of this, the major important points with regard to this Indus water system? While India received rights over 20% of the system's water, even though the source of origination of this Indus water system mainly lies in India, despite that we are using only 20% to preserve the rights of the lower riparian state Pakistan. Yesterday, Pakistan has declared that this rescinding of treaty, suspension of the treaty, Indus Water Treaty, will be considered to be an act of war against Pakistan. Pakistan is also already facing the worst kind of economic crisis in decades. And this kind of stoppage of the water of Indus river system will wreak further havoc with the already fledgling economy of Pakistan. And India needs to be prepared that this will have a ripple effect. Already they saw Balochistan Liberation Army attack where their train was hijacked. Okay, so those kind of things are there. Yes, supreme history, the answer here is Jhelum. Now, the suspension of Indus Water Treaty is going to be devastating for Pakistan since it relies on Indus River and its tributaries for around 80% of its irrigation needs. Agriculture contributes roughly 21% to their economy and 21% to their GDP and supports 45% of the population. At a time when unemployment is at an all-time high in Pakistan, around 8% unemployment rate. Okay, GDP, it's not GDP in case of Pakistan, it is gross loan product. So they are borrowing so much. Okay, after Afghan, the terror attack, etc., Afghan war ended, Afghanistan has been taken over by Taliban. So they are not getting any kind of military aid from even the United States of America. US used to give them $1.2 billion in aid every year. That has also been stopped now. Okay, talking about Taliban, Taliban has also condemned this act. Taliban released a statement that this will further destabilize the region of South Asia. So Taliban, otherwise a terror group, which is now managing Afghanistan, which is now ruling Afghanistan, has given a statement which prima facie says that it is also not going to give any kind of support to Pakistan this time around. So Pakistan will be isolated not only by the G20 countries India is reaching out to, but also by its friendly neighboring countries like Afghanistan ruled by Taliban. So that is going to be a grave thing for Pakistan, but we need to analyze that this is the time wherein India needs the stable world order for its economy to prosper, for us to uplift people out of poverty. Okay, we have the poverty rate of 22%. 22%. Pakistan poverty rate is 40%, the official figure. So those things are to be taken into account, that this bleeding your neighbor is going to bleed you as well in the process, because the ripple effect of it is going to be the China, India, the vulnerability that is there. Okay. Now coming to the other aspects of this thing, important dam projects that have been in news in recent past have been covered quite holistically. Then Shahpur Kandi Dam, it is located on the Ravi River. The river is Ravi here, a part of Indus Water System in Pathankot district, Punjab. Downstream from the existing Ranjit Sagar Dam. Already Ranjit Sagar Dam was there. Downstream that Ranjit Sagar Dam on the same Ravi River, Shahpur Kandi Dam has now been completed. Then coming to other aspects, the water released by Ranjit Sagar Dam is utilized for generating power from this project. The main purpose behind the construction of this dam is to meet the irrigation and power generation needs of Punjab and Jammu and Kashmir together. Even though this is a state government project, okay, Punjab government constructed it. The total output capacity is going to be 200 megawatt, 206 megawatt you can say. Then Uj multi-purpose project, again a multi-purpose project. It is a proposed hydropower project, irrigation and drinking water project on Uj River, a tributary of Ravi River in Jammu and Kashmir, India. Again Ravi, here also Shahpur Kandi is on Ravi. So you need to memorize the dams, the rivers on which they have been built. The project aims to generate around 186 megawatt of power, electricity and store. So it is going to be a reservoir kind of a dam. Okay. Water for irrigation and drinking purposes. The project is currently in the permitting stage and is expected to be completed by 2028. So guys, we need to understand that even if we indulge in the hyperbole, the hype and hoopla being created that India has suspended Indus Water Treaty for the TRP of various YouTube channels these days. We are not going to talk about conventional news channels, but even the YouTube channels have got thumbnails like Pakistan will cry for every drop of water. This will take its own time. Until 2028, 2029, we won't be able to complete these projects. Okay, it will take some time because overnight we can't build them. Till now, India was abiding by all the terms and conditions of Indus Water Treaty. The sharing of water data, letting the Pakistani water officials, water commission officials come and visit India to see things for themselves, to check the projects being made by India. The reservoir projects were completely prohibited because reservoir projects, as I explained yesterday, they will tap a lot of water. They will store a lot of water first from flowing downstreams after they are filled up. So Pakistan would have been deprived of the water share. That is why we could not construct such kind of reservoir dams until now. Okay. Now when we have made up our mind, now we are going to construct these dams. Yesterday I had explained that. Compare this to China. After the Doklam Plateau crisis in 2017 near Sikkim, near Bhutan border, okay, China has been strengthening the back-end infrastructure. Roads, etc. are being constructed heavily by China. Compare this to Russia. In 2014, Russia had annexed Crimea province. After that, Vladimir Putin, the visionary leader of Russia, what did he do? He started investing in things like McDonald's to mitigate the effect of US sanctions in case of a full-blown war between Russia and Ukraine, which finally was triggered by Russia in 2022. So 8 to 9 years of preparation. After Crimea experiment, Russia started preparing its economy to be immune from the effect of sanctions of the Western world. Nord Stream Pipeline 2, Nord Stream Pipeline 1 was already there. Nord Stream Pipeline 2 to supply gas to from Russia to the European countries was constructed during these 8 years, and it was also made functional. Now compare this to India. Thanks to the thriving democracy, we say that democracy is good for the country, good for the citizens at least, because we have freedom on WhatsApp, we have right to privacy, data privacy, etc. But these countries which are having a kind of sham in the name of fake democracy, we can say, Vladimir Putin is in power since long time. Chinese leader, Communist Party, the single party system, a kind of dictatorial system, but they are more prepared in terms of defense. Due to periodic elections, 5-year vision of the leaders of the country, we are more busy with the flagship programs or flagging of the new trains. Whereas the border security, the strengthening of the infrastructure in the border has been given a go by. As I said, we have these countries like China and Russia, they prepared themselves for a full-blown war. What did we do? We were busy, celebrating our 75 years of independence, which is a good thing. But periodic elections, the democracy sometimes is not good for the security, external security, or is not good for prioritizing the external security at least. No doubt the abrogation of Article 370, etc., these have been good momentous steps. But are we prepared in the form of defense? That is the moot question that we need to answer. Otherwise, we can indulge in the hyperbole that we are rescinding Indus Water Treaty, we are rescinding this, we are suspending this, but we need to take into account the China factor. Okay, so China was strengthening the border infrastructure. We will start making the drinking water projects, the hydel power projects, the reservoir projects. We will start thinking upon constructing them only now, after we have finally made up our mind to rescind the Indus Water Treaty. I hope you get my point. Okay, so this was a brief analysis. Now the 𝐂𝐿 multi-purpose project, it is a proposed hydropower irrigation and drinking water project on 𝐂𝐿 river, which is a tributary of Ravi river. Again, Ravi river. Okay, in Jammu and Kashmir, the project aims to generate 186 megawatt. So Ravi is in news here. Then the Kishan Ganga hydropower project, it is a major point of contention between India and Pakistan. It was referred to the neutral arbiter. Okay, the neutral arbiter under the Indus Water Treaty, the second tier, the tier 2 mechanism to resolve disputes, differences if any, with regard to implementation of Indus Water Treaty. Okay, so diverting the water from Kishan Ganga, also known as Neelam river in Pakistan, to a power plant in Jhelum river. Okay, so as I said, this Jhelum, otherwise the rights over the Jhelum are with Pakistan as per CJI, the Chenab Jhelum Indus. Until now, the projects that we have discussed, they are on the rivers which are already, on which India has already gotten the rights. Okay, Ravi, again here was also Ravi, we discussed here also Ravi. So the point here is Kishan Ganga hydropower project, it is a bone of contention. Why? Because India envisaged this project on Jhelum river. Pakistan says that once completed or in the process of filling up the reservoir, the lower riparian state of Pakistan will be deprived of the bare minimum flow of water that India is supposed to sustain, India is supposed to provide to Pakistan. So that is why Gurez Valley, the project located in the Gurez Valley of Jammu and Kashmir, is a run of the river project. But Pakistan says that it is not essentially a run of river project. It is going to be a reservoir project which will store a lot of water, depriving Pakistan of its share. Pakistan objects to the project, arguing that it violates the 1960 Indus Water Treaty. So Kishan Ganga project becomes even more important. It is going to be constructed on Jhelum river. Okay, multi-purpose it is again. Other important dam projects, you see so many important dam projects of India are located on Indus water system. Bhakra Dam, Baglihar Dam, Uri Dam, Chamera Dam, then Pong Dam, Salal Dam, Dulhasti Dam, this Bhakra and Nangal Dam, then Theen Dam, built on Ravi. I have mentioned the names of the rivers also. So one-stop solution kind of a thing insofar as study of Indus water system is concerned is provided here along with the UPSC previous year questions, guys. Okay, now coming to the other aspects, in a tit for tat kind of a response, rather reaction, Pakistan has repeated the same points in a way reiterated the same points as were there in the India's press release yesterday. Suspension of visa for the SAARC visitors to Pakistan, Indian visitors to Pakistan, cutting down on the diplomatic staff in Indian embassy in Pakistan, asking the defense advisors in the Indian embassy in Pakistan to leave Pakistan immediately, declaring them to be persona non grata. Okay, so those kind of things have been, they are finding mention here. But one important thing is Shimla Agreement of 1972. Pakistan says that we are rescinding all such arrangements and we declare that we are not going to abide by Shimla Agreement of 1972. What is Shimla Agreement briefly? Many of you must be knowing already. I had asked a question on Telegram channel with regard to this topic. Shimla Agreement was signed in the aftermath of 1971 war that Pakistan had lost to India. The agreement said that both the countries will not indulge in any kind of warfare, and if at all there will be any dispute with regard to territory, with regard to the borderline LOC, that will be resolved mutually between both the countries without involving any third power, third country, including the US or any other Western power. So Pakistan now says that apart from the tit for tat that India had said yesterday after India's Cabinet Committee on Security meeting, same points are repeated in the Pakistan's release also, apart from the resigning of Shimla Agreement. Pakistan says that it is not bound by Shimla Agreement now, which means that Pakistan can indulge in act of attack against India, full-fledged attack. So it is kind of threat, hyperbole again, not necessarily going to attack, etc. Now, as India is weighing options, whether India should go for attack, the advisors, the retired army generals of India have been tweeting. They say that India should let Pakistan be on tenterhooks and in the meantime, gather the international support, diplomatic support. And in that manner, India's foreign secretary from yesterday, he started liaising with, reaching out to the G20 group of countries to gather support for India. Maybe there will come a response, but these are all hyperbole things. We as UPSC aspirants are not going to indulge much in that. It warned against any misadventure, indicating that it expects a military response from India over brutal killing. Okay. Yes, apart from the territorial exchange, in Shimla Agreement, as he rightly says, India gave back 13,000 square kilometers and released 93,000 prisoners of war. You are quite right. Okay. So, again, sweet gestures by India. Now, Pakistan matched the decisions taken by India's Cabinet Committee on Security. Please answer who all are included in the India's Cabinet Committee on Security. This question we had asked yesterday also. Who all are included in the India's Cabinet Committee on Security? Everyone is requested to answer these questions for your own better preparation, including closing of the Wagah border. We said that we are closing Atari border. Pakistan says Wagah border will be closed. Declaring Indian defense, naval and air advisors in the Indian embassy in Pakistan as persona non grata. That means they are not wanted in Pakistan. Downsizing the size of Indian High Commission from 55 to 30 personnel. Pakistan stated that any attempt to stop or divert Indus water flow would be considered as an act of war. And Pakistan will respond or act accordingly as a country protects its interests during the times of war. Okay. Now, Pakistan cancelled SAARC visas for Indians with an exception for Sikh pilgrims, and the Kartarpur corridor will remain open for now. So these are like, again, see, if the hostilities, if we were on the verge of war, we would not only be reducing the diplomatic staff, we would have been sending them back. Okay, Kartarpur corridor wouldn't have been left open. It would have been shut completely. So you can understand, even though the government of India, the democratically elected government of India, has to respond to the simmering anger of people. The emotions are very high. Okay, so that is why this kind of a thing is happening. But since both the countries are nuclear powers, any kind of full-fledged, full-blown war between the two sides seems to be a remote possibility, especially when we have our own domestic priorities at hand and we have a neighbor like China in the support of Pakistan. Already we know that CPEC corridor, etc., the disagreements have been there with regard to China-Pakistan economic corridor also. Okay. Now, Pakistan's defense minister accused India of planning an all-out war and threatened retaliation against Indian citizens. So this all is with regard to this thing. Okay. Now, Shimla Agreement of 1972 rejected third-party mediation in Jammu and Kashmir dispute. So all this is there. Now, coming to post 1971 war, the agreement was signed in 1972 in Shimla following Indo-Pakistan War of 1971, which resulted in the creation of Bangladesh and a decisive victory for India. Normalization of relations. The primary aim of Shimla Agreement was to establish a framework for peaceful and cooperative relations between India and Pakistan after conflict. Now, a line of control, these things you can read. Return of the territory and prisoners of war, as somebody has mentioned in the comment section also. Okay. Now, coming to this thing, gloom gives way to rage as the relatives of victim raise poor security. How much soever we can we blame Pakistan? But we have to admit that we were not prepared. It was not a site in Shimla. It was not a tourist spot in Shimla or any other peaceful location. It was not in Bangalore. It was in one of the worst affected areas of India, worst terror affected areas of India, Kashmir. Okay, that to Pahalgam. So Pahalgam, if you have incorporated the map also, someone who is aspiring for becoming an IPS officer or IAS officer, you see this is Pahalgam located. Okay, this is around 200 to 300 kilometers from other sensitive locations around the border. We can say that this is the sensitive area around the border. Okay, this is the sensitive area, this is the sensitive area, but how can anyone enter up to 300 kilometers with automatic weapons? It is Jammu and Kashmir, agreed. These type of movement of weapons was not captured on any of the communication devices. As per the Home Minister, Mr. Amit Shah, he said that none of these signals, none of these early warning signs, or the fact that any such kind of terror attack was under planning, no such clues were captured by the Defense Intelligence Agency, the internal wing of DIA, okay, the internal wing of Ministry of Defense and Intelligence Bureau, even RAW. So that means it was a completely undercover planning that was executed in the Pahalgam attack. But the intelligence planning, intelligence failure on one side, okay, we are in the age of dark net, dark web, etc. We might not have been able to capture that. Maybe the terrorists were not using any kind of communication device, agreed. We are in the age of Pegasus, that also leave aside. Why there were no security personnel? How could they enter 200 to 300 kilometers? One thing. But why there was not even a single policeman or CRPF Jawan? Paramilitary forces. Home Minister says that deliberately we ensure that at these tourist destinations the presence of army is not there, because it instills a sense of fear in the mind of visiting tourists. That is why we created paramilitary forces, sir. Paramilitary is not full-fledged military, paramilitary, semi-military. Okay, CRPF Jawans, CISF Jawans are available, they are visible all through on the metro stations in Delhi, airports, every airport. So why were they not present when it is the area is known for the thronging of the tourists? The tourists, they visit in troves, thousands every day. At the time of attack also, as per various estimates, there were 2,000 to 3,000 people who were there at the time of attack. It is said, as per one estimate, that if 25 lakh people are visiting Jammu and Kashmir, 22 lakh, if not 22 lakh, 15 lakh people in a year would visit Pahalgam. And then also, there was not even a single check post. Not even a single sepoy, CRPF, CISF, any other border security force, no one was there. So it is definitely a case of security failure, definitely. Okay, we are not talking about any location like Taj Hotel in, Mumbai. We are talking about a sensitive location. 3 years ago, we abrogated Article 370. How can you be so complacent or so confident that terrorists will now not dare to come there? Agreed that we concluded the elections recently. Completely agree. Okay, peacefully, elections were held peacefully. Omar Abdullah became the the chief minister. Okay, and your own Uprajyapal, the lieutenant governor, is also there. Despite that, in the sensitive location of Jammu and Kashmir, that too a tourist spot which is called as mini Switzerland, there was not even a single Indian soldier present. So that is the point here. Okay. Now coming to this thing, the minister is learned to have said that the security agencies could not trace any communication signal within the radius of 50 km of Baisaran Meadow, Valley. Okay. So the tourist hotspot where the attack happened for at least 5 days before the attack. The terrorists did not use any communication device. Okay, fine. But the presence of the security forces was conspicuous by its absence. Now, Pahalgam is known to be a heavily guarded area. The opposition says the three-tier security arrangement has to be there. It was secured by a three-tier security arrangement. It is imperative that a comprehensive analysis is conducted into the intelligence failures and security lapses that enabled such an attack in the Union territory, an area directly under the purview of the Union Home Ministry. Since it is a Union territory, the area is directly under the charge of Union Home Minister. So how can this type of attack happen in Union territory? That too when in the last 3-4 years you have abrogated Article 370. You know that angers are simmering in Pakistan. Pakistan is not able to swallow this fact. Despite that, complacency was there. Now I have incorporated a UPSC mains essay topic of 2009. 26/11 attack happened in 2008. After that, the next mains that happened in UPSC was in 2009. See this question, are we a soft state? What does it mean? That any terrorist comes into the interiors of India, 300 kilometers within the borders of India, executes the attack, hides in jungle and goes away. These are the symptoms of being a soft state. Okay, so same happened in Mumbai. Terrorists, they came via the coastal route that time, entered into the one of the posh areas of Mumbai, and that to one of the elite hotels, the posh hotels of Mumbai, executed the attack, and we were caught unawares. Same kind of a thing happens here. Okay, and this time the location is fragile. Location is very, very sensitive. It is not something like Mumbai or Bengaluru or Chennai. No, it was well known, right? So that is why these type of, be prepared for this type of a question. It is not necessarily that the question will only be there in GS mains paper 3 or 2. Sometimes essay topics are framed in a manner to reflect the recent terror attacks. Okay, so this is how you can, on a sober plane, even though some emotional element is there, security thing is there, political elements are there in our discussion today, but on the sober side, you have to see this is how the essay, any topic in UPSC is framed in this regard. I had to browse through the entire UPSC 2008 question, 2009 question paper. That time there used to be two papers, GS mains paper 1, GS mains paper 2. Okay. Now there comes a question, sir, is there any other form of government that is better than democracy? Democracy is good for the citizens, for the residents of the country, citizens of the country. Agreed. Okay, liberties, good governance, World Bank's formula of good governance, the 5 pointers in good governance, we are able to live up to in a democratic country. Periodic elections are there. Okay, but the kind of challenges that the world is facing, okay, the long-term challenges are given a go by when it comes to the 5-yearly democracy. You understand what is 5-yearly? We are myopic. Democracy is myopic towards the preparation for the future. Are we paying heed to the water crisis? I'm not talking about Jal Jeevan mission. I'm talking about Jal Khatam mission. You getting my point? What if the water reservoirs, what if the water gets exhausted? Already so many water aquifers are drying up. So are we prepared for these type of things that China is preparing itself? Are some part of Pangong Tso Lake area near that Deep Sang Valley, it is still under the possession of China, even though it is not being reported by media. Okay, so that is the problem here, right? So see the Russia, the way, the meticulous planning that went into the Ukrainian war, only a country which is not a democracy can execute that. I'm not saying we should convert ourselves into a dictatorial regime, etc. No, democracy is good because ultimately any form of government is for the welfare of the people. If we are a superpower, good country, great country, having a lot of GDP, but if people's rights are given a go by, they are compromised with, of what use the superpower or dragon is, China is. Okay, so that is the problem here. Now, Supreme Court gives approval for UGC rules to fight caste-based bias. So what is happening is, in the light of Rohit Vemula case of 2015-16, where Rohit Vemula, with due respect, with all the respects to the SC, ST and other diverse communities of India, so Rohit Vemula, a scheduled caste student, got killed in one of the universities, one of the college campuses, okay, because of the hatred, because of the discrimination meted out at him. That was, he was in a way persecuted, he was in a way tortured by the sections of the college. So that is why UGC has now issued the guidelines, University Grants Commission, Promotion of Equity in Higher Educational Institution Guidelines or Regulations of 2025. Now let's talk quickly about the salient features. So what are the salient features? The aims and objectives. These guidelines, they aim to address the discrimination based on religion, race, caste, sex, place of birth in higher educational institutions. Specifically, the regulations aim to promote equity, inclusion and non-discrimination on the college campuses. Okay, socially and educationally backward classes, they can enjoy the benefits of education without any kind of discrimination. Now, key provisions of these new UGC guidelines are equality, equal opportunity. Like in the US, we have Equal Opportunity Commission. Okay. No doubt in India, we have Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment. Okay. But we don't have any equal opportunity kind of a commission. In USA, we have the discrimination against the blacks by the white people. If the blacks and whites, with due respect, if the blacks and whites both are writing the same exam, blacks are going to secure lesser marks. Don't know why. So Equal Opportunities Commission in the USA looks after or takes care of this type of a discrimination, that should not happen in the US. That is why the people like Barack Obama, the Afro-American black president of America, he went on to become the American president. But in India, we are facing the discrimination against the religions, communities in India. That is why these new UGC guidelines, they talk about equal opportunity, not commission, but equal opportunity center. Every higher educational institution must establish an equal opportunity center to oversee equity. Now, please, since many of you have been listening to me, my way of presenting things, what is the difference between equity and equality? Simple definition, take it a question for ethics paper. Please try to comprehend these things for yourself, understand these things for yourself and try to answer. What is the difference between equity and equality? Okay. Now, each higher education institution must establish an equal opportunity center to oversee equity policies and programs. The EOC will be responsible for guiding and counseling stakeholders on academic, financial and social matters. Okay, all the stakeholders, teachers, the trustees of the college, they will be guided or counseled for academic, financial and social matters. What should be the admissions criteria for students who lost their parents or who were victims of any terror attack, who were facing discrimination, who belong to below poverty line category or economically weaker section. So grading of the admission formula, admission criteria should be there. Okay, now coming to the other aspects, subordinate bodies have to be established and equity ambassadors have to be there. Okay, like in the Africa, we celebrate Oprah Winfrey. Likewise, we need to have equity ambassadors, those students or those celebrities who have risen against the discrimination, against all odds of discrimination. Okay, now institutions are required to create subordinate bodies like equity squads in the colleges, equity squad or squad in the college. Please try to understand this. Okay, now and designate at least one stakeholder as an equity ambassador within the college, within each unit and department of the college. Okay, then 24/7 equity helpline should be there so that any future Rohit Vemula can reach out to this helpline number. before taking the extreme step of committing suicide. Okay, then we see in quota type of educational hubs, students are committing suicide because of excessive pressure of competition. Well, these guidelines are UGC guidelines, they do not apply to them, but the academic thing, the academic pressure is also going to be taken into account, as you see here. Okay, so what is this saying? This is saying that counseling stakeholders on academic, financial, and social matters. Even the academic matters will also be a point of counseling. 24/7. Then complaint mechanism. At last, if all these things do not work, what is the last resort? What is the last point? The last point is complaint mechanism. A mechanism is established for reporting discrimination. Okay, so what happened? Why the matter has reached Supreme Court now? Rohit Vemula's mother wanted that these guidelines by UGC should be put on hold. They should not be implemented until and unless the Supreme Court appointed National Task Force to study this matter is finally gives the report. After studying the report only, UGC should frame these guidelines. The task force recommendations are taken into account while framing these type of guidelines. But Supreme Court said that no, the task force is the subject matter of task force is different. Okay, so these equity committee, consequences of non-compliance, deregistration of non-compliant institutions will happen. All these things are different from the subject matter, the mandate of the National Task Force that was formed by Supreme Court in the aftermath of Rohit Vemula suicide case. Okay, task force mandate is to address the issues related to mental health concerns of students, student suicides, discrimination faced by students. Okay, then providing recommendations to counter these issues. The task force mandate, since it is different from the guidelines that have been promulgated, guidelines that have been the new regulations that have been brought about by UGC. So let's not, Supreme Court said that let us not hold these regulations of UGC until the National Task Force submits the report taking care of these matters. Okay. So this is there. Now coming to background of the National Task Force, the March 2025 Supreme Court judgment forming the task force stemmed from an appeal by the parents of two deceased IIT Delhi students. Both the students belong to scheduled caste, and it was alleged that they were murdered and had reported the caste discrimination in the past. So that is why these guidelines have been brought about. Okay, the court decided that 2025 regulations would be notified pending the report of the task force. That's the crux of it, guys, for today. Okay, now coming to this, Supreme Court to examine concerns on POCSO clause. So section 19 of protection of children from Sexual Offences Act. Section 19. What does section 19 say? The age of consent to have sexual intercourse, sexual relationship between the children aged 16 is now 18. Before the age of 18, the two consenting kids or adolescents, they have to inform this to police. They have to inform this to their parents, and parents have to inform this to police. Okay, even if they are checking into a hotel like Oyo, etc., these matters are quite common these days. Okay, so we are in the age of these type of apps promoting this culture is there. So the Supreme Court agreed to hear the concerns. Now this section 19 is leading to unnecessary criminalization of these adolescents who are sexually mature, who have attained puberty and other sexual traits, but they are not mature enough to decide for themselves about the physical matters, the sexual matters. So that is why section 19, which was inserted in the light of rapes like Nirbhaya rape case, and it was a kind of knee-jerk reaction to an extent. Okay, a conservative mentality, maybe you can say. But what is this happening is Indira Jaising is acting as a friend of court. What we call as friend of court in technical language is amicus curiae. Amicus curiae is a legal jargon for somebody who assists the court in these matters where the court is having limited knowledge. Because judges cannot go to Manipur every time. Okay, judges cannot do the field visits every time. So that is why this is leading to criminalization of young and poses a threat to the fundamental right to health of the adolescent girls. So what is happening is, for example, if a girl under 18 years, she gets pregnant because of sexual relationships with a boy. Now, if she goes to doctor, if she goes to gynecologist, the gynecologist is duty bound as per section 19 of the act to inform to police authorities that yes, this girl was in a sexual relationship. So what happens is, this girl does not go to the court, to the renowned, or to the, you can say, the proper, the full-fledged medical practitioner, the gynecologist who is approved. She instead goes to the quack who charges a hefty fee. Instead of 1000 rupees, the gynecologist, the fake doctor, will charge 2000 rupees and will assure the girl, I would not tell the police that you are pregnant or you are having a sexual relationship with any guy. So senior advocate Indira Jaisingh is serving as amicus curiae in the case. Amicus curiae highlighted that unintended consequences of raising the age of consent from 16 to 18. What do we mean by literal meaning of age of consent? Age of consent means the age at which the consent of anybody for sexual relationship would be considered as legally valid. Okay, if you are 18 plus and you consent to having a sexual relationship with someone, it will not be considered as a case of rape or as violation of section 19 of POCSO. But if there is some girl or boy aged under 18 years, aged less than 18 years, if he or she gives the consent, her consent or his consent would not be considered as legally valid. Okay, so that is the problem here. Now, consequences of increased age of consent. The age of consent was increased, first of all, let us understand, to take care of the girls who are of vulnerable mind, vulnerable age it is. Okay, the girl might end up giving consent even though later on she regrets, because these children are highly vulnerable. Okay, thanks to social media applications, thanks to dating applications, the culture has gotten this kind of a thing that they end up into physical relationships. Later on they regret that. The usage of the contraceptive devices is very low. Okay, the culture of pills that is coming up, the culture of drugs that is coming up, this is a, holistic analysis of this problem is required here. So that is why, as a knee-jerk reaction of the society, the democratically elected government, okay, popularly elected government, responds to the cry of society, responds to the voice of society. But society, whose part these children are, they are way ahead of the society, the age gap that is there. Okay, so that is why what happens is, these kids who are sexually mature entering into sexual relations, they end up being the victim of the system here, because the age is now 18 years. These kids, they lodge into Oyo hotels, etc., and there they have to provide their ID proof. Oyo hotels, they also exploit these couples, because the hotels are also required now under the section 19 of POCSO Act to inform to police authorities about checking in of, about lodging in of, about booking of rooms by these young kids. Okay, so that is why Indira Jaisingh has raised a concern that knowledge of even voluntary sexual activity between juveniles now requires mandatory reporting to police. Knowledge of even voluntary sexual activity. Okay, for driving a car, the license age is 18 years, because we attain maturity by that age. Those are 2 years, doesn't matter much, but yes, it matters when it comes to the maturity of the mind. But the problem is, every reportage of such kind of incident of voluntary sexual relationship to the police, that to the Indian system of police, victimizes the young couples over here. Okay, the term amicus curiae, it is mentioned here, I have explained you. Miss Jaisingh's argument, an eminent lawyer, Miss Jaisingh, is counseling, not criminalization, is needed in such cases of juveniles. Okay, so you cannot criminalize them. There is a risk of creating an army of criminals. Parents, guardians, and even doctors are being penalized for not reporting the known sexual activity. Every known sexual activity between such adolescents, between such juveniles, is required to be reported to police. Doctors treating juveniles are obligated to report voluntary sexual activity, potentially leading to juveniles to seek unsafe alternatives, quacks, for medical care, for abortion, if they happen to accidentally get pregnant. Okay, so that is why this kind of a thing is leading to criminalization of school going kids who are sexually active. Now, court's response is the court acknowledged that Ms. Jaising raised a serious and relevant issue. A detailed hearing on the matter is scheduled for May 8. So, we'll see more on this on May 8. But please understand the crux of the matter here is Section 19, non-reporting is a crime. Even doctor, parents, guardians, tuition teacher, school teacher, if he is in the position to know that a girl or a boy aged under 18 years is indulging in any sexual relationship, he or she is required to, the doctor, teacher, the guardian, the custodian of such information is required to report it to police. Failing which, he might be, the teacher, guardian, etc. might be penalized, doctor also. So that is why this is leading to a problem in its turn. Now, law to protect children from sexual assault, sexual harassment and pornographic violations, as well as to establish special courts for such trials. What is POCSO Act? This is a law to protect children, but in a way it is victimizing children. Gender neutral legislation, the act defines child as any person who is under the age of 18 years. Section 19, non-reporting is a crime. Any person in charge of any institution, excluding children themselves, who fails to report the commission of such sexual offense involving a subordinate faces punishment. Involving anybody under the 18 years. If the hotel comes to know that a boy and a girl were lodging into a hotel room and the hotel did not report it to police, then hotel will face consequences. If the doctor is visited by a girl aged under 18 who tells the doctor in the doctor's fiduciary capacity that she had sexual intercourse and in turn she got a sexually transmitted disease, doctor will have to report it to police. Okay, so now the new global, coming to the other topic, the new global pandemic treaty, why is it needed? Why it falls short? In the aftermath of COVID-19, a new global pandemic treaty is being devised, is going to be signed in the coming days, sponsored by WHO. Okay, the draft of the treaty has been agreed. It is going to be a legally binding treaty designed to tackle the future of pandemics in a better manner. This treaty, the way it has been negotiated, is expected to be ratified at the World Health Assembly in coming May. We'll see more on this once it is ratified, but please try to understand the pandemic treaty which was agreed upon without United States of America. It is the second such treaty after the consensus on tobacco in 2003. 2003 Tobacco Control Treaty. After this, the World Pandemic Treaty is going to be the second such instance where all the countries except USA have agreed to share information. Okay, and the effect of the treaty will be that the inequitable vaccine distribution, the vaccine inequity will not be witnessed in case of any future pandemic, if at all COVID type of pandemic that happens. Okay, so this way it will be able to prevent the preventable loss of life. Okay, because vaccine will be equally distributed. Vaccine companies under this treaty, global vaccine treaty, are mandated to provide 10% of their manufacturing free, mandatory allocation to WHO. Participating manufacturers must allocate 10% of their production of vaccines like Covaxin free of cost. Therapeutics and diagnostics, even the diagnostic the kit is there, like RT-PCR kit, that will have to be provided free. If a company is manufacturing 100 units, 10 units will be given free of cost to WHO. Additional 10% will be given at 10% of the production cost. Okay, at affordable prices rather. So this is a kind of price regulation. The responsibility is cast on the pharmaceutical companies. And in the aftermath of COVID, it was said that China is a country. China did not provide adequate information. China did not share the information with WHO. Had China shared the information on time, pandemic could have been confined to certain countries only. So this World Pandemic Treaty that is going to be ratified in the month of May proposes that countries will be under obligation to share data, to provide the authentic data, all the data with regard to emergence of any kind of epidemic, the localized crisis, health crisis, any such we are in the age of rise of temperature, so these pandemics, epidemics are going to be observed more increasingly in the coming century. That is why this kind of an arrangement is being devised. Now, national policies for publicly funded research. As per the World Pandemic Treaty, countries need to develop national policies to ensure timely and equitable access to drugs and diagnostics resulting from the government funded research. Done. To now, government intervention enabled. The treaty aims to allow governments to intervene to ensure access to affordable life-saving medicines. We in India are also having national list of essential medicines. Now, please answer. National list of essential medicines is issued under which act? Number one, and is issued under which order? We had discussed this in the last 30 days. Okay, last 15-20 days we have covered this. National Pharmaceutical Pricing Authority. Question number 2 with regard to this. Is it a statutory authority? Question. Okay. Is it a executive authority? Statutory authority? Statutory means is it created under any act or no? Okay, so National Pharmaceutical Pricing Authority is there. Third question that could be framed out of this clipping is, out of this news issue is compulsory licensing. Okay. What do we understand by compulsory licensing under WTO? For what duration is the compulsory licensing allowed against the patents? So these questions can be thought about while reading this thing. Okay, government intervention has been enabled. The treaty aims to allow governments to intervene to ensure access to affordable life-saving medicines developed with the taxpayer funding during pandemic. For example, if any company, Bayer or Ranbaxy, if it is able to invent the vaccine for any type of pandemic, let's suppose Covaxin. Okay, then the Covaxin can be, the patents of the Covaxin can be diluted, the patented medicine can be diluted, and some other companies can be given the license to manufacture such vaccine to make it available for the poor people at an affordable price. While Covaxin might be selling for 20,000 rupees a vial, 20,000 rupees per unit, but to make it affordable for people, government can give the license to Sun Pharma or Moon Pharma to manufacture it in bulk for the public health system, for AIMS, for government hospitals, for primary health centers. Okay, so this is now being enabled by this treaty, which is otherwise available. Now, the limitations of the treaty are limited scope despite being groundbreaking. Experts, they say that the World Pandemic Treaty, being sponsored by WHO, has a limited scope despite its historic nature, even though it's a one of a kind initiative, but no WHO power, as national laws and national pharmaceutical companies are beyond the pale of WHO, are beyond the reach of WHO. So it remains to be seen what is going to be the real effect of this policy. Okay, WHO treaty. Then no power to mandate public health measures. WHO cannot give legally binding mandate to national governments, nationally elected governments. Enforcement challenge. US has opted out. It will require a lot of funding. How and where will the funding come from? That remains a huge issue. So it remains a mere talk show. It might be just a good gesture, but the implementation seems to be a big challenge. WHO lacks the power to ensure countries to adhere to agreed upon terms, potentially repeating the issues seen with COVID-19 vaccine competition. Many companies, many countries were in the race to invent the COVID vaccine first. But did any country genuinely distributed the vaccine to the countries, to the poor countries like Kenya, etc., Tanzania, Somalia, etc.? No. Okay, so that is the problem that is going to be there with this treaty also. Now, potential hesitation from pharmaceutical companies. Without strong enforcement, pharmaceutical companies might be hesitant to abide by this World Pandemic Treaty in developing solutions for emerging pathogens. So any new viruses, etc. Then importance of intellectual property. The pharmaceutical industry emphasizes the need for intellectual property protection and legal certainty for continued innovation. Because if they will not be able to generate money for research and development, how would they be able to research upon further pathogenic attacks on human civilization? Okay. Then lack of clarity on pathogen access and benefit sharing. Since the governments collect the pathogens, government hospitals, the government regulators, they get the data about pathogens, etc. Okay, they will share the data with private companies only when private companies agree to sharing 10% of their produce as for free or at a subsidized price. So that is going to be a give and take relationship. The operational details of this key system are currently unclear. Government will share the pathogen access, pathogen data and benefit sharing, and in turn companies will provide free vaccines, some 10% of the vaccines as free for the public health system of the country. Absence of the USA. The United States, a dominant player in the drug, vaccine and diagnostics manufacturing, did not participate in the final agreement. So that is also going to be a problem. Now coming to the last news article of the day, China and Kenya pledge to upgrade ties. Even though India is discussing Indus Water Treaty, but in the last few days we discussed Tanzania, okay, Dar es Salaam port that was there in news. So in what was the name of the exercise? Please answer. What was the name of the exercise? Okay, in last 30 days only, our Prime Minister visited this area. What was the name of the country and what key agreements were signed with the country? The name of the country starts with M. I give you the hint also. Now Tanzania, what was the exercise? In the last few days, India organized some exercise with Tanzania. In a span of 1 week, China and Kenya are now strengthening their ties. Kenyan president visited China and they signed some agreements, set of 20 agreements, MOUs included. So that is how China is making inroads into Africa, this time the eastern part of Africa. Now, please answer these questions. Is Kenya a part of Horn of Africa? Is Kenya a part of Horn of Africa? China and Kenya agreed to boost ties to a new level and oppose trade barriers following talks between President Xi Jinping and Kenyan counterpart William Ruto in Beijing. Again, checkbook diplomacy is at play here. China has given $8 billion worth of loans to Kenya. In 2023, Kenya was unable to pay these loans. Okay, let me take you to the next slide here. Okay, this is the UPSC question. In 2023, when Kenya owed Beijing more than $8 billion, the Kenyan president asked China for a $1 billion loan and restructuring of the existing debt to complete stalled construction of the projects. So restructuring is being sought here also. Kenya was also not able to pay the debt on time, like Bangladesh, like Sri Lanka and many other countries in the recent past. Okay, so in India's neighborhood, we have seen that Sri Lanka regrets having signed agreements with China for Hambantota port, etc. Same thing is repeated by China in the African countries. Okay, now China's checkbook diplomacy at play here also. China is East African nation's biggest bilateral trade lender, with Nairobi, that is the capital of Kenya, receiving loans from Beijing to finance projects like $5 billion railway connecting the capital with port city of Mombasa. Okay, where is Mombasa port located? Kenya. So you should remember this. Africa is vital to China's Belt and Road overseas. That is why China is investing heavily in eastern, northern, western, each and every part of Africa. Okay, the unexploited treasure trove of the world, minerals wealth, diamonds, okay, precious minerals, metals, everything is there in Africa. So the trading profile of Africa has changed over the years. Previously, the European countries, France, Britain, UK, they were able to exploit the mineral wealth of Africa. In the last 20 years, from 2000 till 2022, 2020, I would say, China has been able to make successfully able to make inroads into Africa when we look at the trading data of African countries of 2020. So we'll incorporate that some other day, but understand this is a kind of area where India and Japan tried to venture into Africa, it was agreed that the Indian goodwill will be there, the connection of Mahatma Gandhi, the least developed country kind of criteria, okay, between India and the tropical country kind of the connection between the two countries, and Japanese capital will be invested in Africa to tap the potential of Africa as an economic space. But that kind of a partnership did not last long. Thanks to Fukushima nuclear disaster, then Japanese own economy started getting derailed. Okay, so that is why the problem is there. Now, this is all is there. The Kenyan president visited China in September for a gathering of African leaders, where Beijing pledged more than $50 billion in financing for Africa over 3 years, including $141 million in military assistance to the continent. What kind of military assistance? Let's have a look at the map here. Okay, Djibouti. This is the area. Djibouti has got a naval base from Chinese army. So this is in the name of military assistance. So much for today. This is the question that was asked by UPSC. UPSC prelims previous year question 2022. Bidi Bidi is a large refugee settlement in northwestern Kenya. Some people who fled from South Sudan civil war live in Bidi Bidi. Some people who fled from civil war in Somalia live in Dadaab refuge complex in Kenya. Which of the statements given above is or are correct? So this was a 2022 question. Okay. So this was all in today's news analysis, guys. Did a lot of research to pull out these questions and the data around Indus water system, the dams, etc. Please go through all of that. Please try to spare 15 minutes for your map work today to mark the places in the Atlas map. Okay. So Indus water system you need to study in the coming week. There will be some more aspects of it in the coming Kishanganga, the other dam projects that we discussed. Please go through them once and make detailed notes on a piece of paper, on a sticky note, whatever suits you. But do make a note of these things. 330 megawatt project. It is a multi-purpose project. Which project is located on which river? That is your homework for the day. See you again tomorrow, the same time. Until then, take care. Bye-bye. Jai Hind, guys. Thank you.